Packet arrived on Channel 14 at 0341 station time, and my first thought was that the relay had malfunctioned again. Channel 14 was a pre-diaspora emergency band, older than the Carveth by about 4 centuries. Nobody used it. The automated relay at Waypoint Solon had been forwarding its traffic to active hulls in the corridor for as long as anyone could remember. That traffic had been dead air and cosmic static. I had been senior comms on 3 survey drifts through this corridor in the past 2 years. Channel had given me nothing but background noise and one very confused navigational buoy that someone had programmed wrong in the 2280s. So when the packet landed, I almost routed it to the discard buffer. I didn't, because the distress header was intact. It was partial. The encryption wrapper was malformed, badly degraded, running a key schema I didn't recognize and our system couldn't fully crack. But a distress header has its own structure, underneath the encryption, the same way a bone shows its shape through skin. Whoever had designed that beacon had not planned for the encryption to fail. The distress layer was not meant to be visible. It was visible anyway, and it was screaming. I pulled the packet off the buffer and ran it through manual parse. The key was wrong. Not wrong the way a corrupted file is wrong, but wrong the way a document signed 3 years ago is wrong when the signing authority has since changed its protocols. The schema matched a commercial encryption standard that the Drassith Logistics Consortium had deprecated in the spring of 2291. Whoever had fired this beacon was running old software. The encryption had decayed on transmission, and the decayed signal had bled sideways onto Channel 14, our dead channel, our forgotten channel, the channel nobody aimed anything at. Distress header said, critical structural compromise, personnel at risk, immediate assistance required. It was not aimed at us. That was obvious. The routing prefix in the degraded header was a commercial guild code, not a human emergency designator. Whoever had fired this beacon had aimed it at someone else entirely. Their own protection service, their own people. Whoever was supposed to come when a Drassith logistics operation sent up a flare in the Solon corridor. Their encryption had expired. Their signal had decayed. Our dead channel had caught the ghost of it. I sat with that for about 4 seconds. Then I flagged it to Commander Hess and said, "Sir, we have a distress packet on 14. Something's wrong. Looks like a Drassith commercial beacon aimed at a third party. Not us. The header's genuine and I can't, in good conscience, drop it." Hess came over, read the parse and said, "How far off our survey track?" 11 minutes at standard approach speed. There's a registered processing station, about 90,000 clicks off the corridor's inner edge. Solon 7 Collective, licensed for mineral extraction. The beacons are originating from that direction. He looked at the header again. He looked at me. He said, "Mutual aid, already pulled the form up," I said. He signed it. I filed it to the way station. 2 hulls. The patrol corvette Angren and the supply tender Vrast, which happened to be running armed escorts that month due to increased corridor traffic, acknowledged within 6 minutes and began their intercept burn. The Carveth came about and went to standard approach speed. 11 minutes later we had visual on Solon 7. It was not a mineral extraction facility. It had the shell of one, the registered superstructure, the docking arms, the processing towers. But the thermal profile was wrong, the power draw was wrong, and the 3 ships docked at its private berths were not ore haulers. They were fast movers, courier-class hulls, lightly armed, the kind of configuration our protection fleet uses when it wants to look civilian from a distance. I logged all of it and said nothing on open channel. We kept our approach calm and our lights on. Corveth Mall was in the primary operations room when the proximity alarm sounded, and his first thought was that Parath's ships had made good time. He crossed to the viewport in 4 strides, looked out at the approaching hull, and stopped. It was not Parath's configuration. It was not Parath's colors. It was a human frigate. The running lights in the human naval pattern, the hull geometry unmistakable, moving on a calm, unhurried approach vector with its transponder broadcasting openly. He had been in the Solon corridor long enough to recognize the class. Survey-grade hull. Light armament. Not a warship, not in the aggressive sense. Behind it, at the edge of his long-range display, 2 more contacts had just resolved from the way such bearing. He turned to his operations officer and said very quietly, "Pull the beacon log." The log took 10 seconds to display. He read it in 5. The beacon had fired 41 minutes ago. A structural alarm in the lower processing deck had triggered the emergency protocol automatically, the way it was designed to, aimed at the guild relay that was supposed to route it to Parath's protection service. That was where it was supposed to go. That was the only place it was supposed to go. The encryption key had not been updated since the 2291 rotation. He had known that. He had meant to update it. He had not updated it. He looked back at the viewport. The human frigate was close enough, now that he could see the name on her bow. Kervith. He had never heard of her. She had never heard of him, presumably, until 41 minutes ago, when his beacon had bled onto a channel he had not known was monitored, and a human comms officer had decided that close enough was close enough. He thought about Parath's ships, still somewhere in the corridor, not coming. He thought about the 3 fast movers in his private berth, whose presence he had several explanations for, and none of them good. He thought about the 2 additional human contacts still burning in from the way station. Then he picked up the open channel and said, "Solon 7 Collective to approaching vessel. We read you. Stand by for docking authorization." He said it in the flat voice of a man who has just understood that the thing he was afraid of is not coming, and something else has arrived in its place, and there is nothing useful left to do but open the door. We docked at 0414. The Angren and Vrast arrived 18 minutes later and took up station on the facility's outer berths. Nobody ran. Nobody fired anything. The 3 fast movers stayed exactly where they were. What we found in the lower processing decks was not mineral extraction equipment. I won't detail it here. That's in the official report, filed with the Corridor Authority and the Human Liaison Office at Solon Station. What I will say is that the structural alarm that had triggered the beacon was genuine. Coolant failure in the second Sengari processing chamber had vented enough gas to compromise 2 decks and put the 11 workers in that section at risk. We got them out. Our medic on the Kervith, a quiet woman named Sori Vale, spent the next 2 hours treating chemical exposure cases, while the Vrast's crew sealed the compromised section. Corvith Mall cooperated fully. He had, as far as I could tell, made a rapid calculation somewhere between opening the channel and opening the docking bay. And the calculation had come out the same way any honest arithmetic would. 3 human hulls already docked and the protection fleet still not answering meant the math had changed. We filed the mutual aid report, the structural emergency report, and the facility inspection report. The Corridor Authority sent their own vessel 2 days later for the formal seatings. That is not my part of the story. My part of the story ended when Corvith Mall, being escorted to the Angren for transit, stopped at the docking collar and looked at me. He said, in careful human standard, "The beacon was not aimed at you." I said, "I know." He said, "How did you hear it?" I said, "Channel 14. Pre-diaspora emergency band. Your encryption decayed on transmission and the signal bled over." He looked at me for a moment. He said, "We did not know that channel was monitored." I said, "Most people don't." He thought about that. Then he moved on down the docking collar, and I went back to the comms bay, and I wrote up my log entry for the 0341 packet. I noted the channel. I noted the key schema mismatch. I noted the distress header. I noted the decision to respond. In the notes field I wrote, "Beacon not intended for this vessel or this frequency." Distress header genuine. Responded accordingly. That is the whole of it. Their encryption expired. Our dead channel was listening. They fired a signal at someone else, and we heard it, and we came. I've worked this corridor for 6 years. Channel 14 has never given me anything I was supposed to receive. It gave me that one.